I took training here and began working here later in like '79.
As a deputy, or?
I was a correctional officer, not a deputy, no.
Okay.
Jailer. Jailer.
That was in the sheriff's department. That's part of
This was the Licking County Sheriff's Department, yes.
Now, I was going to ask you what some of your most memorable experiences were, but since we're kind of concentrating primarily on the Lipton brothers, maybe kind of turn that question around and tell us what maybe was most memorable in that respect, as far as when they were arrested, that you were part of that when that happened, I believe, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Lieutenant John Swick was my supervisor, and the sheriff was Captain Lanthorn. And he asked me to physically guard Thaddeus, mostly, during the trial here at the jail, and also when we would transport to the courthouse. And that's what I did during the trial.
What were they like, the brothers?
Two very quiet, one kind of short, Gary, and the other one kind of bigger. Long-time criminals, drug addicts at times, into trouble with the underground. They owed a lot of money, and they were desperate. And that's why they started murdering people.
Now, you said that you were here primarily to protect or guard Thaddeus. Both the brothers were here at the same time?
Gary was here for a short while until he was transferred to Lima.
Were their trials separate?
Geez. I think they were, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mostly dealt with Thaddeus.
And which one was the actual killer?
Gary. He's the one.
Did Thaddeus admit to any of the murders at all, I think?
Well, Gary, this is what I know, is Gary said, Gary was, I think he was addicted to pills or something. He said that if I'm going down, you're going down. So.
Which one of the brothers was married, or were they both married?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Seems like they both were. Yeah.
I remember.
You said one was sent to Lima,
Yeah, Gary. He
probably for the
That's where
for
he is
the
now.
criminally insane.
Yes.
The Lima Hospital for the criminally insane.
Yes. And as far as I know, he's still there. I don't think he died. I don't think he passed away yet.
Yeah, because I think when it finally closed, they were sending some of the people that were there down to the ridges in Athens.
I have no idea after that. I know that Thaddeus, he was a chain-smoking Pall Malls when he smoked. In fact, the day he came here, when we went to the South, I remember thinking, you know, I'm the first person that gets to slam the door on this guy when he gets life, you know. And he had in his hand, just so you know, this is interesting, little plastic bag, like a lunch bag, like you'd have your lunch in it. He had 6 or 8 Star Wars, or not Star Wars, but Star Trek novels. He loved to read Star Trek.
Wow.
And about 6 or 8 packs of Pall Mall. That's all he did.
Wow.
So
Nothing else.
They got to keep their cigarettes and their lighters and stuff in
Yeah.
their cell
Yes.
as long as they were
Yes.
being watched.
Yes. And later, I had wondered, and he died of lung cancer about 10 years later, I guess. He was
Yeah,
like
imagine
67 or something.
Now, you mentioned also that there might be a mob connection, that's why.
That's what I heard, is that he was desperate. It was desperation. They had to come up with some money and started murdering people. Later, when I worked with a lady in Columbus, she was the woman that was murdered, the first lady, I think the first person. It was her best friend, and she told me about that. Kind of different. Yeah, she was in, I think it was Reynoldsburg or somewhere over there. Yeah.
You say you were with them when they were first brought in here in the jail?
Yeah, I worked here, like I said, I worked in the intake room, fingerprinting, processing, and then they asked me to just be their personal guard, just for the record. So like he told me, he was state's evidence and we must protect that. Don't allow him to injure himself, banging his head on the wall or the bars. Or there was glass in the bathroom. I mean, in the mirror and in the window. You could have ate soap or something, you know. But even while he was here, he was chained on his feet, even while he was in the jail.
Wasn't going to go anywhere, was he?
Through me, I guess, first, and then others. So.
How did if they were here,
Orange jumpsuit.
for the prisoners at the time, there was a kitchen downstairs that,
Yes, there was, and I just was going to ask you if you remember Big Charlie Kneff.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I couldn't miss him, man. He was a big
Yep.
boy. About 400 some pounds, and he made it most unbelievable lunches, pork chops, and he finally got healthy. And he lost, must have been 150 pounds. Unbelievable.
He was the cook for the jail.
Well, he's the one that did it, but other people would kind of remind me of what a fire station must be.
Right.
You know? Yeah, you like ribs, she likes chicken, I like steak. You like Italian food, whatever. That place was always a happy time around noon. Yeah. This place was full always when I was here. Just so you'll know that. During the summer, it seemed like when the good weather came, like now, first good day of the year, you would think that they'd go wild wanting to get out, but it just seems to calm them down a little bit. Just,
How many
I can't
prisoners?
go out there. I know I can't do this.
How many prisoners were they keeping in the cells at that time?
There
Because it
was-
started at 4, and then later they had to downsize to 2 per cell.
It seems to me there was 3 or 4 times.
Was there?
Yeah.
Do you ever remember any time where they had more than 4 prisoners per cell? It
No,
never happened,
I
did
don't.
it?
I don't remember that extreme crowding that bad. No.
could you go over again on each floor what,
Sure.
I think we were away from the microphone at that time, but which prisoners were kept on the floors? You said level of felonies or?
Yeah, the way it was on the bottom, very bottom floor, the 2 cells, they were more or less protective custody, isolation
That's in the basement?
in the basement.
Uh-huh.
Usually PC, protective custody cases. People that became state's evidence to testify against other people. So they couldn't be in population. And then the first floor was the F1-2 felonies, murders, rapists. Wasn't too many robberies then. She had extortion and things like that. They were on the first floor. Second floor was other felonies, F3, 4, 5, burglary maybe, carjacking. Well, they didn't have jackings then, but vehicle theft, arson. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like non-violent.
Non-violent crimes, white collar crimes, things like that. Third floor was misdemeanor, long-term consecutive misdemeanor, usually DWI, hit and run, other type cases like that.
And then the 4th floor was just strictly women.
Yeah, and the 4th floor was the women. That's right. Forgot about that. But
Yeah.
I was not allowed up there. That was off limits. Like I said, I was asked to go up there one time just to help out once, and that was all. I usually work weekends, Saturday, Sunday during visitation. That was always the highlight of the week, of course.
When did the family come and visit?
Usually 2 o'clock.
On a Saturday or
Saturday,
Sunday?
Sunday.
No, they couldn't come visit any other time, just
No.
a Saturday or Sunday?
No. just the weekends.
They always had
That's what I
to
remember.
visit them through the windows. They
No, they actually could come in. They came in the building, and I'm just trying to remember how it was. Seems like it was a room they were in.
on the, I know on the second and third floors, there's a room that they kind of go in at the end, and there's a glass window.
Right, that's the way I recall. Just a small room. That's also where the lawyers, the attorneys would go and be with them. That's where the one man escaped that time. Yeah.
They would let the lawyers meet with them in the room, not through the window, or
Yeah, they would be with them, like we are here. Yeah.
Were they being
In that
watched?
room.
in the room.
Yeah, in that room.
Was there also a
Maybe
deputy
that
or
was just
somebody?
maybe that was just initially. Maybe later they did it that way, but yeah, they were in there together.
Well, because most of the time, they're not going to try to hurt somebody that's trying to get them
No,
off the hook.
exactly.
Unless they're really nuts.
So they didn't have to have a deputy in the room with the lawyer and
That was my job, is to just make sure the floor's running
yeah.
appropriately, quietly, and it always did. Never had any problems. I'm glad. One of the guys one time, he said to me, he said, you're in here with us, boys, and we can just do whatever. I said, well, yeah, I know that. I said, yeah, but you wouldn't want to do that. You just got to treat them with respect,
Even though they don't deserve it, I suppose.
Well,
I guess
that's like Crooms, I remember that guy. He was something else. He was a trash talking guy like you wouldn't believe.
Well,
And they knew that. He would get on their nerves, but I didn't want that. I just treated him with respect. It was fine. I said, you wouldn't want to do that because I'm a ward of the state too. You got to cut your own throat. Wouldn't be worth it to me. No, I was only making. I took this job to get off of what do you call it? Unemployment. Like 10 cents more an hour is all it was, but I wanted to do something, like $3.10 an hour or something.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was nothing.
You didn't make money in law enforcement.
You didn't. And I almost quit when they were hiring highway patrolmen. And I thought, no, I would rather be a wildlife officer. That's what I was going to do later. But I said, no, I don't want to be out there patrolling 70 on the weekend, come across a crowded car full of 4 people coming back from Columbus alone. Forget it.
It's a little bit
I
different too.
was a newlywed too at the time. Didn't even have my daughters yet, but I thought, man, forget this.
If you're working inside, as opposed to working out on patrol, the patrol could come in and get, well, you're dirty, or whatever, get them cranked up. But the jailers, you got to be with them. You got to. So you want some peace and quiet, and treat them good. And as long as they treat you
That's
good,
what I was,
Yeah.
They knew that, and I never had any problems. Some of the other people didn't really have all our cases words. Yeah, they had words.
Yeah. If they were drunk, they sobered up. They were like different people.
Well, I remember one day that Lieutenant Penny, I don't know if you remember him. He was in charge. Now he was a stern boss, and you didn't cross him or nothing. I mean, that's the way I remember it. And he just tell you he expected you to do your job. I mean, I didn't work for him. I worked for the other lieutenant. But I remember one Saturday afternoon. It was like today, a beautiful day. It was in the spring. And I heard the radio, and, oh man, they're doing something. They were chasing these 3 guys that robbed young guys, 18, 19, whatever. And they were flying out of Franklin County coming this way, trying to escape. And they caught him. And God, was he pissed when they got here, let me tell you. Pardon me, but oh wow. Get these people away from me, buck them, And I told the kid, man, how you gonna fingerprint someone that's like this, I mean, he was terrified by this guy. There's was 3 of them, and I told him, I said, hey, just my advice to you is you do as you're told.
Yeah.
That's what you said to do. Well, hell, man, they robbed a place, stole a car, man, and they let him on a 100-mile chase. You don't do that to my deputies. Hey, he was good at what he did. So,
Just some kids that were scared.
they were guilty and scared.
Guilty and scared. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
They
other
may have
than,
been young adults too. I don't know. I don't remember. Seems like I think there was one of them was young. Anyway,
who other than the Lewingtons do you remember while you were here that would have been notorious,
well,
down and protective?
Silverwood murder.
Silverwood murder. Eric Holmquist. Like I said, I grew up on 23rd Street here, and he grew up on 25th. Knew him well, and he was just more or less there. He was a witness to what happened. It was north of town.
Up near Wilkins Corner.
Yes, around. Just keep going a little bit. And
So was he on trial for being part of it, or he was?
yeah, he was an accessory.
Accessory to murder.
They charged, they start high and come down.
He was
He was charged as an accomplice.
He was in the gang, the motorcycle gang.
And
London was?
Holmquist.
and then he became state's evidence and told him the truth, what happened, and it helped him. I know that. He got out later, and I never saw him again to this day. Never saw him again.
How would you describe him when he was here?
Well, he's a model prisoner. What do you got to do? You know you're here. Possibly going away for a long time, and. No, the prisoners here were quiet. Like I said, 3rd floor when Burton was here, this man took care of things. He did exactly what he said.
Now, at that time, were they allowed? Were their cell doors open? They came
Open all day, all time, except for Gary Burton, or excuse me, Mike Burton's brother, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
No, he was the one that shot that girl.
And he was the only one that was
He was locked away
Okay.
at all times. Yeah, he was strange, that boy. He had long hair. He looked like Manson or something. And he was
What would
he was
they
no
do?
remorse,
What would they-
nothing at all. He didn't care.
I think maybe you ought to go through that story again, because I think we were out in the other area when you told about how that
He
murder
went through the
happened.
drive-through.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was Michael, or trying to remember, Mike Burton and James Burton. James Burton was the alcoholic on the 3rd floor. His younger brother, Gary, was convicted of murdering a young 16-year-old girl in Johnstown. He didn't get a milkshake filled to the line, is what they said when he went
Gary or Michael?
to the
Was
window.
his name Gary or
This was Gary.
Okay.
And he said, I'm going to go back home, get a shotgun, I'm going to kill you. And he did. Just cold-bloodedly gunned her down, killed her. And he was locked away on the 2nd floor, or 1st floor. And it's by himself. Why they evaluated him, he's like a caged animal. He just active, kept moving
And what year
didn't
was
say a
that?
word, didn't talk to anyone. And no one talked to him.
What year was that?
Everyone found weird because, you would think that he would find someone to say something to, but
Yeah, just
no one talked. He talked to me, but I didn't talk to him. What am I going to say to the guy?
David, what year was that?
Well, it must have been 79.
Okay.
That's when I was here.
What was a prisoner's typical day like?
Typical day would be, they have their breakfast, and then right after that is their medications. They always get their medications, and the nurse or whoever it was would put them in a in a tray and then on a push cart. And then I would be with her, and she would dispense those to the prisoners.
Are they still in their cells at this time, or are they
No.
walking?
If
Just
you're walking
freely
out,
walking.
you would know them. They didn't have inmates with their name on them or anything. Seemed like they just had just a uniform. Licking County Jail, I think is what it said.
And even on the first floor, I mean, were you armed or just
No
as a
arm,
jailer?
nothing.
No.
No one was
baton,
armed?
nothing. The only thing you had was your about an 8-inch key and went in that big door. That was it. The radio, nothing.
And then after their medications?
Then they would take the medication, and you had to say, "Open up, let me see." Make sure they swallow it, you know. That's what I got tired of doing. Hey, people would sell it, you know, or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And then they would just wait for their court time, their appointments at the doctors and the hospitals and whatever they could get involved in.
That they would just in and out of their cell, lunch was at a certain time?
They
they'd
just
watch
roamed around all day.
TV shows?
That
or-
area we looked at,
Mhm.
they would just be roaming around, playing cards and dominoes. and
Not a
whatever.
lot of space there,
No,
not at all.
it was hot.
Without any way to protect yourself or anything, especially on that first floor where you would think more of your dangerous criminals were, was there ever a particular moment or anything that you felt threatened maybe, or
Well, when
threatened
I-
anyone, or apprehensive at all?
Well, it's just natural to be instinctively protective of yourself. So sure, it made me think that, so I always thought, well, just treat them right. And you know who the bosses are. There's usually two guys that were, biggest, strongest, powerful. They took care of things now, I'm telling you.
So on each
So
block
I
there
would deal
be
with them.
one-
I would mentally work with them, and they would work with me because they would try to get things out of me.
Well, what if they left and were transferred somewhere else?
They
How
didn't.
did they decide who was the hierarchy after that?
You would know. It would just
Intimidation
automatically.
factor.
It's the biggest, strongest to rule the jungle.
How long was a prisoner typically here?
They were here a while. The ones that were the whole time I was there. Now some of the guys maybe up on the third floor would leave.
In the drunk tank and the misdemeanors?
Yeah. I don't know if this one Bill guy, I forget who he was. He was a trustee. He'd been here in and out, And he was in and out here for drunk and disorderly or something. He had 2 months to go on his second term. He had served 6 months and then 4 months. He had 2 more months to go. He was allowed to go outside. He could rake leaves, and seems like they did have a camera outside. I think they did. I know they did on the intake over here, but
There were some of them, it's kind of like their home. It was better than their home.
like him. I knew one guy broken-winded just to come back. They were fed like you would not believe in here. Oh man, everyone that came in gained weight. I mean, it was amazing. But where's Bill? I don't know, where is he? Swig said, "Hey, the bar right there was Elbow,
Yeah,
still there, isn't it?"
yeah.
He said, "Hey, we should get down there and look." Went down there with one of the guys, and there he was. There just drinking a beer. He was the only person in the bar. Sitting there with all his friends. Says, "What you doing, man?" He said, "Oh, I wanted a beer." You only had 2 more months to go. You got 6 more months for that, for escape. 6 months. So. Like you said, it's his home.
Yeah. And
He wanted a beer. It's worth it to him.
some people are lonely. Some people, this was like a palace compared to what they lived in.
Especially in the winter.
Yeah.
That's when it would fill up. home away from home or their only home, so.
Do you remember what would have been on the second or third floors on this side of the building, not the jail, but in the rooms?
On this room?
Yeah.
Well, I remember it, trying to remember this because where the radio room was, it seems like it was in the center, wasn't it? Right on the other side here,
On this floor?
first floor.
Mm-hmm.
Because the property room was on the other side. 'Cause I'll never forget, we were just sitting there one afternoon, I think it was on the weekend. It's usually quieter after the families leave. And somebody mentioned the gun, the Stuger Luger, that the murder weapon. And one of them said, "I'll go get it. You want to look at it or whatever." He went to see it and it wasn't there.
Mm.
Now my father, Buxton Tavern, he had a placard, a poster of it, and told that, they were looking for that type of weapon. But they found it. They got it. Don't tell where it is now. Probably in an archive somewhere. I imagine. I don't know. But on the other side, like you said, was I just remember the property room, and then it led out to the outside. But, and then the front entrance right here had a window.
Now this was the main
This was
entrance.
still the
here.
front entrance right here, yeah. So this right here was up to the other cell block.
Well, this right here actually is, that staircase there goes up to the second floor living area.
That used to be the living area.
Okay.
And
It looks
you
like
can't-
it might have been offices or maybe
I see.
captain's
And
offices.
then the rest of the room is the cell block.
Well, then there, from the second floor, there's a small narrow staircase that goes up to the third floor, which is the matron's
Into the
quarter.
matron's.
And from the matron's quarters, you
Yeah.
enter into the cell block. You can't get to the cell block other than the
It's
very
kinda
top
weird.
floor.
I see.
It's
Yeah.
built.
I forget how it was.
You've got that main wall where we went, through the door in there.
Yeah.
That's all the jail cells, 4 stories with a basement.
Yeah.
The front is 3 stories,
Okay.
but with taller ceilings.
Right. I used to have to go around the catwalk. That'd be an easy way to observe all of them, rather than go in there. See, I didn't have to go in that way. I could just lock it off.
So the catwalk was usually at night when they were
I didn't
locked
work
in.
nights, but yeah, that would be used at night. They'd be locked back, sure. Probably locked back in their cell too.
Mhm.
So they'd have to get out of their cell, and then they'd have to get out of the end one. Then they'd have to get out the window if they're going. So. But during the day when I was in there, no, it was. They were open.
Did you have a lot of fights between prisoners?
Not real physical fights, but they're shoving and yelling at times, yes. But they know that if you do that, you're going to get locked back, and you're going to get your privileges taken away.
Mhm.
There's a lot of smoke in there. You can have your coffee and stuff.
Did they try to keep them from talking to one another somewhat, or did that really matter?
No, they didn't care. Maybe they knew that when they put them in, they might have separated them by floor or something. I don't know that.
On in the jail, the stairs that go from floor to floor, was there a door at the base of the stairs
No,
for
I don't
each one
think
of the
so.
two?
No, I don't remember the door being there. It's pretty open. It's just the main bars you saw back there. Is the main thing. And it would get rowdy at times, whatever, but then they would know. Tell them to shut up,
Now, with the Lewingtons, where, obviously, they was high profile because they had murdered
Oh, yeah.
in several counties, but typically, were they any different than any other prisoner here?
No, they were no different, and they were no worse, no better. They were resigned to their fate. And I asked, I think it was George Crooms, I said, what do I say to this guy, Well, what can I say? He said, well, just ask him how it went in court today. I remember that, and I did. You know, when they came back, how'd it go? You know, how was it? Well, pretty good. You're going down. Hey, that's not up to me. You know. But
Did anyone ever come to visit them while they were here?
No.
The Lewingtons? No.
Just the psychiatrists and the doctors once in a while. Very seldom. They would go to them. I don't even know if they. It seems like they were here a few times, perhaps. But normally they would go to the hospital or whatever. Yeah. Then they were transferred. I think he went to Lucasville, didn't he?
Is that?
Thaddeus, when he was
I
found
believe-
guilty. I think
so.
I believe that's where he
I
died.
think he went to Lucasville and died there.
Yeah, which is what, down by Chillicothe.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in Lima is where.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure, because they had a thing in the newspaper, it talked about, you know, remember the 22 caliber killers and,
Yeah. Their appearance was normal. Not like the Burton. You had to physically get him in there and take a shower. He didn't care about hygiene at all. And, he ran around naked in the cell. And
which one was that?
The one that killed the girl.
that was another
Oh,
one.
in the
yeah.
drive-thru.
Now, were they,
Girl.
well, how many showers were they mandated to have a week?
It seems like they got one about every other day or so.
If they wanted one.
Pretty normal.
And if they
Well,
didn't,
we would make them get one. They always would go, generally.
so if they didn't
Like,
want
yeah.
one, you'd make them get one.
Sure. Yeah. And they were fed when we gave them their meals. They were. In fact, you can see one of these at the works over here. It's one of these, they're little silver metal tray like things. It's about 4 inches all the way around. It's got 2 sides to it. That's what they were fed with.
They ate in their cells.
They ate in their cells right there. Yeah. You could have killed someone with one of them. You know, bam. But
Did they have, in the alleyway there at the front, were there tables in there at one time for them to sit at?
alleyway.
Well, like the front,
Yeah.
The
The
front
little
area.
recreation area.
where the TV was, did
Did
they have tables
there to
in
play
there at one
cards
time
on
or
and-
something?
What do you mean now?
Back here in
Right
the-
just outside the cell hallway, walking out of the cells, it kind of tees off on both sides, by the shower. That area.
Right there.
Yeah.
By the TV? Yes, yes.
There's
There were tables there, that's right.
that's where they ate and played cards.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And be bitching about what channel.
Wondered
Of
about
course.
that.
What else you gonna complain about? You know? And I have 3 channels then. You have 4.
You have about 5 choices.
Count 34 and then WSFJ out here.
Did they watch soap operas? I mean, what else is on during the day?
Password, whatever.
Oh, okay.
Price is Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Bob Barker started doing that about 1920, didn't he?
Jeopardy and,
Yeah.
Normal stuff. Yeah, but that'd be one of the first things you take away.
He did it on
was their
radio.
TV,
Yeah.
if they were acting up.
Privilege.
And
Now,
Now, how did
Coffee.
they, what if one of them were acting up or something and their TV privilege got taken away? Was there retaliation against, or was it more of a group kind of thing that?
it's more of a group thing. You know, you're too loud. You had to be quiet. You know, the other floors were quiet. First floor, you know, that's the bad boys.
And they were
well,
usually.
if they knew they were getting their privileges taken away, you got the peer
Yeah.
thing going on there too. You know, well, if you keep it up and get our TV taken away, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Exactly.
It's one of them.
That reminds me of one thing too, is on Thursdays, I remember, my daughter says, well, how can you remember what day it was? Well, I do. Commissary, we would go right over here.
Oh, the store.
Yeah, it wasn't Little Bear, it was Big Bear.
John,
It was a nigga. IGA.
Big Bear. It was
Big Bear back then, Big
Yeah, Big Bear.
Big Bear.
It was a real big bear.
It was a real big bear, that's correct. And we would go over there and they would say, okay, Charlie, give me your list. And Ann, give me your list.
How did they have money?
People give it to them. They had an account. And they would say, give me your list, what do you want? And they had to buy stuff. I don't think the state gave them anything. I don't think they gave them soap or anything. Maybe soap or something, but it seems like to me toothpaste and everything else you had to buy over here.
Towels, washcloths, those were all
They were provided. And you had to count every one of those, by the way. Razors were locked on the end. It's like a Gillette or a Wilkinson, you remember those? And there was a screw that went on the end. It had a thumbnail to take those off. You had to count for every blade.
Now, when you were here, or the time that you worked here, were there any suicides? Attempted?
None that I recall that were successful. One kid called it a suicide. What he did was the old, 60-watt bulb, he cut his wrist somewhat, and they called it. So
it's the wrong way.
Man, it didn't even go through the skin.
Want attention?
Yeah, you
Get to go to the hospital. Get out of the building.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then other times they would try to get me to bring stuff to them. You know, hey, can you bring me some marijuana?
All right. Get right on that.
Man, they'd just be all over you for that. Oh, you can put, that's what reminded me was the toothpaste. Yeah, you can just put it in that toothpaste, just do that,
Were there many inmates in here
It was
for?
my job for that.
Yeah. Were there many prisoners in here for drug issues?
Yeah,
back
there was drugs, sure.
So the drug issues then would have only been pills or cocaine or
Yeah, there was
something like
cocaine, like that girl I was telling you about, and then some of the guys. Heroin wasn't a real problem then, or of course meth. They did have speed, of course, pill form. Nothing like today,
that.
nothing at all.
Yeah.
No. Theft, robbery, stuff like that. White collar crime, embezzlement, things like that.
What was the youngest that you think was ever here while you were here? The
Youngest person? Well, besides those kids, there's ones from Franklin County that they arrested. They were normally young adults, 21, 2, 3, about my age. I was 23 when I worked here. Back to the commissary real quick. We had our list. We'd go over there with a shopping cart and we'd fill it and we'd come back and then we'd have to separate it and then you have to go give it out like medicine, Gave them what they wanted, Big thing, man.
Yeah.
That's another thing you can take away from them.
Their commissary day, yeah.
That, hey, I don't like getting any candy bars or no magazine or something.
Now, what if a patient came up with a toothache or something like that?
Well, it seems like they had a nurse there. Like I said, that did the dispensing of the pills. She would make the evaluation on what to do with them.
Did they have somebody designated to give them haircuts, or was there more than one barber
They
that
did
would come
for
in?
haircuts.
That might have been getting into the days when there were no haircuts for.
I don't remember about that one. They didn't do it here. I don't. They would have had to somehow. You're right. They would have had to have done something. Got to look good for court or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about
Probably did it
their,
themselves.
Well, they wouldn't have had a barber shop or anything, because the
No, they had
longest they
nothing
could
like
stay
that.
here was a year.
They have a barber come in and do that.
Yeah, they may have had someone to...
Yeah, that's the longest they stayed was a year. Usually, that would be 2 consecutive 6 months terms. There was usually no 1-year sentences here that I remember. You don't get a 1-year sentence much.
Yeah.
You do probably
Yeah,
today.
usually the most you would get,
Yeah.
like you said, a couple, 6 months.
You get 6 months, or you get 2 to 5 or something,
Mhm.
you know? But I remember when they go to prison too, that's another thing. That was a tough day for these guys, boy. I can see that.
Going from the little house to the big house.
And, you know, the deputies would tell me, you know, especially watching today, you know, plus, you know, tell them how it's going to be, you know, what's going to happen, what to expect. And when you're taken in there and you're deloused and all this and this, and you're in there giving your number and, you know, whatever, so. Yeah, that's true. I remember that. Yeah, it seemed like it was like once a month or so, and they would pull up, and usually a couple at a time. And they would go to prison.
Sorry, I don't want to change the subject too much. I have to leave in a few minutes, but I was curious about, were there any other suspects from the Silverwood murder who were maybe up on the first floor here?
There was another man in there with Eric, but I don't remember if it was with the same case or not. I don't think it was.
Okay.
I don't think
I was
so.
curious
No,
about that
I don't
case.
believe there was.
Okay.
No, I think he was the only one.
Okay.
Which means maybe they wanted to keep them separated so they wouldn't collaborate, or maybe he was in Muscatine County or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, another venue somewhere.
Well, thanks. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
I wish I didn't have to go.
That's one of the reasons I just kind of got involved in this. I took criminal justice when I was in that service, and it was interesting to me. And then the job came open, and I thought, wow, man, that'd be a neat place to work for a while.
Blast from the past.
And it was interesting.
Thanks. I'll look forward to listening to the rest of it.
Yeah.
See you. See you.
How much more you got there, Neil?
I think this thing will go for a long time, but, I mean, I can't think of anything else to ask you, except for maybe if you know anyone else who might be willing to be talked to us about.
Well, the two people that I remember, Lloyd Nice first was hired with me, and I knew his son. He lived across the street from me when my kids were little here. You may speak to him.
What's that name again?
Lloyd Nice, N-I-C-E.
Okay.
Yeah, he's certainly a nice guy. They named him right. He really was a nice guy. And Trudy Anderson was the other one, the gal.
Now, was old Chuck Patterson here when you were here?
I'm trying to remember that. I think he was, yeah, because
He might have. He was probably pretty young then.
They were all young.
Yeah.
There wasn't any real old
Yeah, 'cause
timers.
it's kind of like, you know, when you take the job, you don't think you're young, but, you know, you're 21, 22 years old, you look back at that, wow, you know, I'm just a little kid.
Yeah. It's like 10 years later, you say, well, I can't leave.
Yeah,
I invested here, and
yeah, yeah.
like when the base closed, I was going to get my 20-year pin in 2 months. Pennsylvania or bust.
And just for recap, because we didn't, I don't know if the recorders picked it up, but you said when you were guarding Thaddeus Lewington, he was in one of the basement cells, in the dungeon cells or the tanks.
Yeah, he was there for a while, but it seems to me, I don't know if it was maybe just a break for lunch to come back here and eat or what, but I did watch him in like the office area.
Mhm.
And he was always leg shackled, always. For good reason.
And then you also mentioned too, I don't think we had this going whenever you were here in the late 70s, 78, 79, that the intake area was actually a small room here by the back.
Yeah, it seems like to me it was on this south side where you come through the main outdoor entrance, and I think it was right there.
Yeah, there seems to be an impression in the floor where
Yeah, it
there
seems
was
like
a
it was
wall.
right there.
Yeah, because even in the mid-'80s, we would come over on the south door, we'd
Yes.
bring prisoners,
Yeah.
and we would, you know, meet them right there, meet the jailer right
Yeah.
there, and hand the paperwork.
Yeah.
There's the paperwork and the prisoner.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was positive that they didn't really go to the basement.
No, they were
Right
straight
there.
in, that's where I would fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were kind of misinformed a little bit on that one because we thought they did take them downstairs.
I was trying to remember things yesterday and then thinking about it. I forgot all about the fingerprint thing. They did ask me to do that because, they have to be right. You can't read.
It gets smeared a little bit, it isn't any good.
Way, I learned about fingerprints. You got the arc and the whirl and different patterns that you have to have it. And it has to go from your whole digit,
Like,
from the digit to the end, and then cuticle to cuticle. You got to roll it just right.
Mhm.
But now it's just, zzz,
Yeah, now it's just,
which I knew it would be that someday.
and then you get somebody that doesn't want to get it done, and you're sitting
That's
there
true.
wrestling around with them, and they're moving, and
Yeah, they're sweaty, nervous.
they may have to get Todd
Man, they're
Manor.
nervous. They just got busted now. I didn't see any abuse or anything either. I'd like to state that. They were all treated well, fairly.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I think
Like, there wasn't any rubber hoses or anything like that, but I did hear the story. That's what the way some of them. That's the way they did do it.
I think by that time,
The rubber hose.
people in the past,
Mhm.
abused it so much it was being watched so close, and
They said you could. They told me this right here in this building. They said you could use a rubber hose on an inmate in the elevator going to the courthouse. By the time you got there, there'd be no walls. Okay, if you tell me that. In other words, you could beat the hell out of them and extract from them what you want, and there's no
rubber
evidence.
hose around your neck.
I don't know. Makes sense. But, I had a question about the Carl Etherington trial here. Remember that?
Yes, I remember reading
He was
about
hung right out here.
Mhm.
I learned that in our casting jammers, and I have a portrait of it that Tom Huff, one of the founders, put out. And he was drug out of this jail. He was 18
Second floor.
years old.
17
Strung up right there.
over there.
Yeah, the southeast,
on the
southeast corner.
Carl Etherington.
Right there where Angela Mead, my chiropractor, used to be at
Yeah.
one time, and I told her that.
Now that she moved.
2 months later, she left.
Well, I don't know if you knew, he was actually a runaway. He was reading detective stories, and he had run away from home and lied about his age and that he had been in the service and all this.
Told him
And
that he was in the Marines. He had served 4 years in the Marines. He was 23 years old. He wanted the
Yeah.
job with this, he was a dry detective,
but
like a
the
liquor
way
control
that
agent now.
the way that his parents found out was seeing his picture and
When he was
reading it in the
dead.
paper after the
He
fact.
read the detective magazines, typical kid wanting action.
This was the second time he'd run away.
And-
He came home once before.
He got hired on a
Johnny
kid
Clown. Same difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He did the same thing.
Yep. Wanted the action. I tell you what, when he came to Newark in 1910, he got some action.
Yes, he did.
It was probably his first and his last action.
I'd say so.
And
Well, that noose he never felt that noose.
the
No,
guy,
he was dead.
the man that he shot
Yeah.
was a former captain of the Newark Police
Yeah,
Department.
he was an off-duty policeman, wasn't he?
Yeah. No,
No, he
had quit
retired.
as a
He was a
captain
bar owner.
because he made more money with his brothel and his bar than he was being captain. And the sheriff
Yeah.
here
Uh-huh.
was on the take, allowing this stuff to happen, and he was making 3 or 4 times more
Yeah, sure.
from being on the take, allowing this stuff to happen, than he was on his own salary.
Wicked times back then, boy.
Yeah, I thought it was bad in the 80s and 90s.
Well, look at the arcade.
Yeah,
Back in the 30s, it was a little Chicago of the East here.
yeah.
Everything went on there.
Yep, I've heard it called Little Chicago, Sin City, and
Sin City. There's still signs up there that says speakeasy on there.
yeah.
We were just up there this summer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'll look at that.
I'd never been through the whole thing. From the bottom and upstairs. There's a tunnel that goes from the courthouse under the street over there.
Really?
Was where the judge's chamber was. was his escape hatch. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd heard about the tunnel, I've never seen
And
it.
I heard about it forever, and I finally saw it, and it's bricked up. It goes all the way into the street, under the sidewalk, where that Tiffany's or whatever it is there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bricked it up due to vagrants being in there in the 90s.
Now, where did it come, where did the steps take up into Tiffany's?
No, it was down below Tiffany's.
Down below Tiffany's?
Right below, right where the sidewalk is, about 4 feet on the other side of the sidewalk, it came out. It was like a diagonal from the courthouse all the way over.
Now, was it for the judges to leave? or what?
That's what they used it for later. It was, an emergency thing, but it was set up, Bob Berger told me this, Dave Berger, in the 40s as a shelter. Boy, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good underground tunnel.
Yeah,
there.
wow.
Yeah. It's quite a bit under there, really. Pretty amazing.
Well, we can conclude this as far as
All right.
on the computer here for you guys, unless you have one other question or two.
Man, I can't think of anything else.
Okay.
I will ask this, and like you said, where things were at in this building,
Mm-hmm.
it's changed a lot. In 100 years, there was,
Oh, sure,
there
it
was
did.
things
Yeah.
moving around,
Yeah.
but on the very top floor, the 4th floor, you got the matrons right here, then you take 2 steps up and you're in the 4th floor female block.
Uh-huh.
When you walk into the room where the visitation windows are, to the left, there's a room. It looked like a bedroom and it had its own separate bathroom. Do you know what that was used for?
No. On the 4th floor?
On the 4th floor.
I would assume it would be like a maid's quarters or a innkeeper or something. Originally.
Yeah. Now in the matron's quarters, we're here in this part of the circle or the tube or whatever. Over there, up in the matron's, on the other round room, on the wall, there's 4 latches, and they come down with screens in them, really high. We didn't know what
Where
was
is this now?
ventilation in the
We'll
matron's
go up and
quarters.
look at it in a minute.
Yeah, we could go
Yeah.
and look at it. And, it's just the strangest looking thing. And I thought maybe there's a wee little skinny room in between. Maybe that's where they had the stove and they opened them up to have ventilation. I don't know.
I don't know, and I don't know, maybe you do, did they originally house women here?
Yes, always.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the 4th floor has always
Yeah.
been.
Always been?
Always.
Okay.
And the matron was always at the 3rd floor living
Well,
quarters.
I assume
Usually
that, but I don't assume the sun's
Yeah.
coming up.
Usually whenever if the new sheriff came in, he brought a matron with him, except for the last 2. The last 2 were here for 15 and 17 years or something with each.
Had a heart attack.
No, all the sheriffs, the matrons, usually were spinster women or a woman with, I think the last one had a child, but the sheriffs, Sheriff Embry had a heart attack in 34, McElroy in 49.
Wow. Consecutive.
Francis.
Well, people didn't know about heart problems and things like that.
Francis in
then, you know, but-
62 and Howarth in
Yeah,
70.
Yeah. And the funny thing, we do these paranormal investigations here. Sometimes we do public ones that come in. We're getting all kinds of crazy crap from this
Well, I was
place.
asking, what do you find? Is that one kind of a meter, electrical meter or something?
We
This is a
have got
recorder that,
we've got pictures of shadow people. We got a picture of her in the matron's quarters when she's standing there with the light. She's got her chihuahua, and he senses a lot of things. She walks through the door like going out towards the cell
Saying
blocks,
your chihuahua.
I have a chihuahua
and
that
she
goes-
walks out this door,
Three.
and this apparition appears like glowing light of a person
Wow.
appeared and followed and goes like right through the
That's
wall
right.
right after.
we were,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just going to go ahead and pause this now,
Okay.
and we'll just conclude it for on this computer. So,
We were
Again,
here a week ago Monday and caught another picture of somebody up there.
this is March 11th.
So
We're
his name was
concluding this
David.
2000.
recording now, 2014,
He said
March
his name
11th.
was David, the spirit we got on this box that we have.
What does that mean?
That is just a real, that's a studio quality.